Welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to embark on an absolutely incredible micro-to-macro journey through the mechanics of life itself. We're going to be zooming all the way in to the tiny microscopic structures inside a single cell, and then panning all the way out to the massive elemental cycles that sustain our entire planet.
Now, what's really wild about this explainer is our source material. We aren't just flipping through some dusty textbook today. We are actually cracking the code of a notoriously rigorous Cambridge IGCSE biology exam paper to build our masterclass. We're taking these really challenging exam questions and transforming them into a fascinating story about how biological systems actually work.
Okay, so here is our flight path for today. We'll be going on a rapid-fire journey from the microscopic to the global. We'll start with cells and superfoods, move into the human breath and kidneys, uncover plant reproduction secrets, predict the future with the genetics of blood, and finally wrap it all up with nature's nitrogen cycle. Let's dive right into Section 1, Cells and Superfoods, the microscopic powerhouses. We are starting at the absolute smallest scale with an organism called chlorella. Now, it's a single-celled protoctist, but don't let its size fool you. Our source material reveals it boasts a highly organized structure, complete with a nucleus, a protective cell wall, a cell membrane, and chloroplasts for photosynthesis. It's basically a microscopic factory. And this biological complexity translates directly to your daily life as a consumer. You've probably seen chlorella and another supplement called spirulina sitting on the shelves at health food stores, right? Well, when you actually compare their data, it's super interesting. Chlorella completely dominates in certain areas. It provides vitamin C, which spirulina lacks entirely, and it packs a massive 120 milligrams of calcium compared to spirulina's measly 5.1. But actually scratch that if you need iron, because spirulina is the clear winner there.
So let's do the math on this for a second. If you choose chlorella to get your daily iron, how much do you actually need to consume? Well, the exam data shows that to hit the 12 milligram recommended daily intake using standard 5-gram chlorella tablets, you would need exactly 6.5 tablets a day. Boom. It's a perfect example of using raw biological data to directly inform your daily nutritional habits. Moving right along to Section 2, the human breath, powering the machine. Let's scale up from that single cell to a full human organ system. We're looking at the respiratory system now, starting right at the trachea. You know, it's not just a simple pipe. It's a heavily guarded tunnel. The wall of the trachea contains rings of protective tissue to keep the airway open. And it relies on specialized cells whose entire job is to constantly keep foreign particles out of your lungs.
Think about the sheer mechanics of a single breath. It's this beautifully dynamic 1-2-3 action sequence. It all starts with the thorax. A change in the volume of the thorax directly forces a change in internal pressure. And because nature loves equilibrium, air is either rapidly pulled in or pushed out to equalize that pressure. I mean, it's just pure, elegant physics happening inside your chest thousands of times a day.
But here's a fun question. What actually controls the pace of this system? You might think your body is constantly monitoring oxygen to decide when you need to breathe harder. But actually, during physical activity, it's the rise in carbon dioxide concentration in your blood that your body detects. That rising CO2 acts like an internal alarm bell, instantly triggering an increase in both the rate and the depth of your breathing. Which brings us to Section 3. Kidneys and filtration, the internal purifier. Continuing our tour of the body, we arrive at the kidney, specifically focusing on a microscopic structure called the nephron. This little guy operates exactly like a high-tech water filtration plant, tirelessly managing our internal fluids to keep our blood perfectly balanced. And the way this process works is it's a masterclass in sorting. If you trace the journey from blood to filtrate to urine, it's wild. Look at protein. It drops from 8% in the blood down to absolutely 0 in the filtrate and urine. The kidney completely filters it out to keep it safely locked in the body. Meanwhile, it takes toxic waste like urea, which starts at a tiny 0.03% in the blood and concentrates it all the way up to 2% so it can be flushed out. But, what happens when our internal control systems break down? Conditions like type 1 diabetes fundamentally disrupt how our body handles things like blood glucose. And this is very often linked to a gene mutation. As our source material defines it, a gene mutation is, at its core, a change in the base sequence of our DNA. Just one tiny, microscopic typo in the genetic code can literally disrupt an entire human organ system. All right, Section 4. Plant reproduction secrets, botanical battles. Let's step outside the human body for a minute and look at how traits are passed on in the broader natural world, specifically focusing on how flowers manage their genetic material, their pollen.
The botanical world is full of absolutely fascinating strategies for survival. A flower's architectural design totally dictates its game plan. It really comes down to two main pathways. First, there's self-pollination, where pollen is transferred within the exact same flower or plant. And then there's cross-pollination, where the plant sends its genetic material out into the world to be transferred to a completely different plant of the same species.
Now here's the curveball that always trips people up on exams like this one. Wait, what? Self-pollinating plants are still reproducing sexually, not asexually. Wait, why? Because the whole process fundamentally involves the fusion of gametes. It's all about the mechanics of the cells involved, not the zip code the pollen came from.
Section 5. The genetics of blood, predicting the future. Let's bring those fundamental rules of genetic inheritance back to humans. These rules dictate incredibly complex traits in our species. A perfect example is discontinuous variation, which is where individuals fall into distinct categories with absolutely no in-between, like our blood groups. Blood groups are the perfect way to understand a fascinating genetic concept called codominance. Usually, one genetic trait totally masks another, right? But in codominance, when both alleles in a heterozygous organism are present, they both contribute to the final result. So if you inherit an A allele from one parent and a B allele from the other, neither one hides. They just share the stage, and you simply become blood type AB. Let's actually walk through this genetic matchup step by step to see how we predict the future here. Imagine two parents. One has blood type A, the other has blood type B. But they both carry a hidden recessive O gene. When their gametes split and recombine, the exact mathematical probability of their offspring having that unique AB blood group is exactly 25%. We are literally tracking the math of inheritance here.
And finally, Section 6, Nature's Nitrogen Cycle, the ultimate recycling program. For our final zoom out, we are leaving individual organisms entirely. We're going to look at how the Earth acts as the ultimate recycling facility, constantly moving the essential building blocks of life through the environment via the nitrogen cycle.
This cycle is just a relentless, non-stop loop. It starts with bacteria in the soil fixing nitrogen straight from the atmosphere. Plants use it. Animals eat those plants. And then, in a great callback to our kidney section earlier, animals process the waste into urea. It breaks down, undergoes nitrification, and eventually denitrification shoots it right back up into the sky. Nothing is wasted. The whole shebang just keeps cycling.
And that actually brings us to the unifying truth of everything we've discussed today. Whether we're talking about a microscopic chlorella cell photosynthesizing, human lungs gasping for air, or a global soil cycle recycling nitrogen, the ultimate engine driving every single one of these biological systems is the sun. It is the principal source of energy for life on Earth. As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought. Biology isn't just some list of isolated exam facts you have to memorize. It's an intricately woven web where a microscopic typo in your DNA can alter your entire life, and tiny soil bacteria quite literally sustain the atmosphere we all breathe. So I leave you with this. How truly separate are you from the microscopic world and the global environment around you? Keep exploring the mechanics of life, and I'll see you next time.